thoughts find out, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest, one of her advocacy, a fast thinking, deeply nerdy marketer with broad ranging experience in non-profit or in for-profit and non-profit sectors. No other than Miss Rachel Allen. Welcome, Miss Rachel on Abstract Outside. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Rachel Allen. I run Bolt from the Blue Copywriting, where I make words make money.
Indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Rachel. Thank you. And today let's talk about why 99% of marketing advice sets you up to fail and the actual genuine recipe for sales. So tell us, let's start with the bold premise of your talk. Why is a vast majority of mainstream marketing advice not just ineffective, but actually setting people up for failure?
So this is one of my very favorite things to talk about. I've been shouting about it on the internet for years, but what I realized is that most marketing advice is predicated on following someone else's system and on the idea that you can control all the factors that go into someone experiencing your marketing, which is just not the case.
Beyond just being generic, what is
Mhm.
the core flawed assumption about human psychology that most guru advice is based on?
So I think people tend to give advice forgetting that the person on the other end of the marketing is actually human. We see people fall into this a lot when they talk about, growing your follower numbers or growing your list or whatever. And it's very easy because of the way our brains are wired to actually forget that all of those people, all those users or members or list members or whatever, those are people who are just as complex and interesting and contradictory and odd as you. And so people try and treat it almost like it's a you're optimizing for efficiency in a production process when really you're speaking to actual humans.
Hmm. Interesting, Miss Rachel. Many people are following these bad advice and feel like they're doing marketing correctly. What's the
Mm.
telltale sign that advice they are following is broken?
Well, I think the first thing is that it's not working for you. I think a lot of people put forth a really positive view of themselves on social media. In fact, I actually did a survey about this earlier this year. And I asked people, first question, how is your business actually doing this year? And it was most people were doing about the same, a little less good than last year. And then the second question I asked was, and how accurate do you portray that on social media? How accurately would people understand how your business is? And almost everybody, 85% said, you know what? It's not very accurate. People probably think I'm doing much better than I am. And so when you're putting out that front and you're doing everything so called right, but it's just not really working for you, I mean, that's the first sign. And if you're looking at it from the outside, if you as the viewer are trying to see, like, okay, does this person really know what they're doing? If they tend to switch strategies every 90 days or so, or every time something new becomes popular, if they seem to be like they're trying on different personalities, so they have different tone changes, you don't really know how they're going to show up from one day to the next, or if the things they post are just very generic and it's like, that AI spit it out and they didn't even look at it. Those are all signs that somebody is not really doing well with marketing.
Diagnosing the problem and the aha moment. If you had to diagnose the single biggest problem in most businesses' marketing, is it more about their message, their medium, or their mindset?
I mean, I think you have to have the mindset right before you can get the message or the medium. I think the medium is the least important out of any of those. So you have to figure out the mindset first, though, of like, why am I even doing this? What do I want to happen out of this marketing? Do I believe that people will listen to me? Do I have anything of value to say? Until you get that foundation done, there's no point in even trying the rest of it.
What was the pivotal moment or case study in your career that made you realize everything I've been thought about marketing is wrong?
Mm. Well, I think I was lucky in that I didn't plan on ever being a marketer, and so I fell into it completely backwards. I never actually studied it formally. So I think I've done a lot of kind of outsider things from the beginning. But I got actually 5 or 10, no, 5, 7 years into doing this. And I started noticing that the things that I was doing for my clients were very different than the standard best practice advice. But then I would have really great successes. Like, for instance, I had a client who runs a very premier salon in the UK, and we sold £20,000 worth of business off of 3 emails. And that's essentially unheard of, especially with the way email marketing is today. And so I kept having these impossible wins. And what I realized is that it came down to that just difference in how I approach marketing.
Miss, Miss, we often see businesses chasing vanity metrics,
Mm.
likes, followers. How does this pursuit actively sabotage the ability to make genuine sales, Miss Rachel?
Well, it's really easy to find yourself spending a lot of time getting very good at chasing those metrics. And then you're so busy doing it, you don't actually have time for sales. And the sneaky way that this comes in too is you feel like you're succeeding, right? Because you have the Instagram followers, you have the LinkedIn engagement, you have whatever it is. And so you feel like you're succeeding. But when you look at your actual bank balance, it's not paying off. You're not getting the sales. And so you've basically created a job for yourself where you have to constantly keep this flow of content up, and it's not actually paying you.
Interesting, Miss Rachel. Unveiling the actual genuine recipe. Let's talk about the philosophy. Your actual recipe seems to be about genuine connection over persuasion. In a
Mhm.
practical terms, what does the shift mindset look like on a Monday morning for a business owner?
Well, I think the first thing that it shifts is you have to get very honest about what you actually want out of your marketing relationship. I think people go into it thinking that they have one goal usually, but then if you realize there's a person on the other end, it's like, oh man, maybe I don't need 75 million followers. Maybe I just need 10 really good ones, you know? And so it helps you reorient your goals. And I think that it's also helps you get a sense of what's actually important to you. So you mentioned vanity metrics. When you come in with that human focus, it's much easier to be like, you know what? I don't really care the size of my email list, or I realize that actually I have a massive followership of people I don't really like. And it can help you reorient and make better decisions.
Interesting, Miss Cindy. Interesting. You talk about a genuine recipe. Does require a complete tear down a company's existing marketing, or it can be woven into what they are already doing.
I mean, unless you're just doing it very badly, I think it's a matter of reorientation as opposed to tearing it down. So, what I realized after doing this all these years is that for sales to happen, for any sale to happen, you have to have this four elements in place, and they all four have to happen, which is you have to put the right thing in front of the right person at the right time and in the right way. And so, a lot of what people are already doing for marketing can align with that. But you have to understand one, you only have control over really two of those factors. And then you have to figure out how to stack the deck in your favor on the others. And it's more often a matter of just getting rid of the things that are extra and stop wasting your time trying to be everywhere to everybody all at once and get very focused on the things that will lead you towards your goals.
Miss Rachel, how do you reconcile the need for genuine patient approach with the very real pressure that entrepreneurs and sales teams face to hit quarterly targets?
So I don't think they're actually separate factors. I think quarterly targets are your milestones on the way to that longer success. That being said, I do recognize that there is a constant pressure. You know, you have to pay your rent, you have to make your bills, you have to make that quarterly earning. And so, what I found is that even though focusing on the human element and going for the more long term strategy feels like it would undermine your shorter term strategy, if you can stick with it and if you do it consistently, you will experience a more sustainable quarterly growth as opposed to what we so often see, which is this like up and down and up and down and up and down, where you're constantly cycling through new tactics or new audiences just to try and grab those dollars. So it does end up being less work and more profit over the long term.
Mr. Rachel, the practical mechanics of the recipe. Let's get tactical. What is the very first action you have a business take to stop the bleeding from a bad marketing advice and start building a real foundation?
The first thing I always do is I look at their strategy. And a shocking number of businesses I go into have what they call a marketing strategy that's really a marketing wish. So it'll be like, well, we want more brand equity. We want to grow our email list. And I'm like, cool, what does that actually look like? What do you actually want to accomplish? Because it's very easy to set these goals that are so nebulous and out there that you can't ever really know whether you're getting closer or further away from them. And so people just go kind of on vibes, which is a terrible way to measure anything in your business. So the first thing is we get really, really clear, and then we stop doing anything that doesn't directly lead to that.
Interesting, Miss Rachel. In your recipe, what's more important? The clarity of the offer, of the depth of the relationship with the audience, or is that the false choice?
I mean, I think it's a false choice, right? If you can't have a sale happen without either one of those things. I do when I'm recommending strategy, I do tell people to start with the clarity of the offer before they start thinking about how they need to position that for your audience, though, because it's very easy to fall into this trap where you try and guess how your audience wants to encounter your thing before you know how you would talk about it. And so, if you can start by getting very clear in your own terms of what is this and why would anybody want it, then you turn towards the audience and then you incorporate your strategy and then you execute.
Can you walk us through a before and after example of a sales conversation showing how it changes when someone applies your genuine framework versus the old pushy script?
Well, I mean, I think the before is they show up usually unsure about how the conversation is going to go and in an adversarial relationship with the person on the other side because it's I have something that I want to sell you, you have the power in this relationship because you have the money that I want from you, and so I have to convince you to give me the money. And nobody's at their best when there's this like push pull relationship going on. Also, I think people come in and they either try to sell in the way that they want to be sold to because they're not really focusing on the humanity and the relationship of the other person. And so then you can end up talking past each other. Or what I also see people do is they try and sort of mash people through a sales script. And I've actually been in sales calls like that where it's like talking to a robot and I'll say something and they'll be like, okay, cool. And they don't even respond to what I said and they just ask the next question in whatever sales script they have. So that's the before. Doesn't work out great. The after is you show up open with a genuine curiosity, knowing that maybe you'll end up working together. Maybe you won't, but maybe they'll refer you to someone else. Or maybe 5 years down the road, you'll end up working together. So it really is about planting those seeds of relationship and seeing how you can be genuinely helpful to each other. And pardon me, if that ends up being you working together, fantastic. If that ends up being them sending a load of referrals your way, also fantastic. There's really no way to lose because even if you get on the call and you realize that actually you're not a fit for each other, then great. You've just saved everybody a bunch of time.
Trust is the buzzword, but how do you operationalize a building trust in your marketing? Is it through content, through the sales calls, or through something else entirely?
I think that there's three elements to it, and one of which, the first of which, actually doesn't involve any contact with the person on the other side. So the first of which is just getting very clear in yourself of what you're actually about, what your values are, what the positioning is for this thing, why anybody would buy it. Because if you don't have that alignment within yourself, it is really hard to have a congruent conversation with someone else. So you start there, and then it's a mix of reliability and presence. So the metaphor I often use is it's like getting to know somebody who goes to the same coffee shop as you. You know, if you show up at the same coffee shop every day, even if you don't talk to this person, like you're going to start to know them by sight. They're going to start to feel familiar. Maybe you do have a conversation about something and you learn that they're actually great at XYZ, whereas you're great at ABC. And so the relationship forms naturally over time. And the same exact thing applies just in social media format. If you can show up in the same circles, whether in person, online, in Zoom calls, in networking calls, the more present you can be, and importantly, the more consistent you can be in your presence so that people know who you are. They know what to expect. They're not surprised when you say something. Then that's how humans feel comfortable enough to really form that relationship and open up to each other.
What is the most common pushback you get from seasoned sales veterans when you present these genuine approach, and how do you answer it?
Well, I think the first thing people do is they say marketing never understands sales. And I'm like, yeah, usually most marketing people never talk to salespeople. So what I do is I get really curious and I say, okay, you tell me, what am I not seeing? You talk to these people every single day. What can I do to set you up for success? And so by removing the adversarial dynamic and framing and being like, yes, you know things that I don't, please tell me, then they're usually much more receptive to me saying like, okay, great. You know, I'm seeing all of these things that you're telling me. And here's the massive track record of success that we have with this approach. Do you think you could be comfortable trying it out for 90 days?
These methods requires vulnerability and willingness to be a different. How do you help business owners overcome the fear of standing out, of being judged?
Oh, that's such a good question. I love that. Almost no one ever asked me that. So a lot of my work is first of all seeing them and being non-judgmental towards them. A lot of times, people actually cry when they get on the call with me because they say, you know, nobody has ever seen me like you do. Nobody has believed in me like you do. So I show up and model it for them and give them that one person who believes in them enough to where they feel comfortable maybe going out and sharing it with a few more people. And I also emphasize to them they don't ever need to share anything or do anything that they're not comfortable with. I firmly believe in having a strong sense of privacy and still being able to share your personality on the internet.
This method requires something else that we need to level up. So,
Mm.
what are your recommendation for all those business out there to level up on what they're doing?
Hmm. You know, I think in terms of mindset and sort of like higher level stuff, I think it's really to recognize that if you want to survive in such a chaotic business atmosphere that we're experiencing right now, you have to think long term. You cannot be reactive. Once you get on that quarterly hamster wheel, you never get off and you are automatically capping what you can do with your earnings and your legacy and your relationships. And then in terms of more tactical things, I recommend this thing that everybody hates, but it makes such a difference, which is going through and making sure that you have a consistent brand voice in every client facing thing. And so I mean every social media post you put out, every email, the text in the footer of your email, the thank you pages that people get when they buy your product, all the tiny, tiny little things that you think people wouldn't notice. But when people, even if they don't consciously think about it, they see that you've put this much work into it, and it really is a huge rapport builder.
For the business owners who tell us, I don't have time to build relationships, I need sales now. What is your response?
I mean, good luck getting sales without relationships. Who are you selling to? You
Definitely.
can you can hustle and you can try and go for volume, but that is such a lot of work to avoid doing a little work. So what I recommend is take the time. It does not take that long. It will pay off enormously if you can just be a little bit patient.
Definitely. And how do you measure the success of this genuine approach? What are the key metrics that replace vanity stats like
Mm.
follower count?
So I always pull metrics reverse engineered out of goals. So whatever the goal is, I look for the quantitative metrics. So let's say we wanted to increase our brand awareness, and the way we would measure that is by email list growth, LinkedIn engagement, and I don't know, Instagram growth or whatever. And then I also add a layer of qualitative metrics. So I say, okay, do we like these people who are following us? Do they seem like high quality leads? When they get on with the sales team, are they easy to talk to, or are they just like really random? And how do we feel about this as the team? Do we feel proud of what we're putting out? Do we feel like we can stand behind it? Does it seem like a giant pain for us to do it? So I combine the quantitative and qualitative metrics and then get a more comprehensive picture of what's actually going on so we can make better decisions.
Once this system is working, how does it change the nature of the business itself beyond just marketing department?
Well, I mean, it changes everything because you get a much closer relationship with the people you're selling to, so you can be more responsive to them. You're no longer having to guess at what people might want. You can actually listen to them, and they will tell you, "Hey, these are our problems. Please, do you have any kind of solution?" So you can be much more proactive and responsive to them. A lot of times, if you see any business that feels like it's always just like right on the cutting edge, it's because they have a fantastic relationship with their customers and they're actually listening to them. It also solves the long-standing issue between marketing and sales because you're all doing the same thing. It's all part of the same conversation. Marketing is just the beginning of the conversation that sales is the end of. And finally, it changes the way you do your planning because you're no longer thinking in terms of short-term campaigns. You're thinking in terms of long-term goals.
Looking at the future of AI and automation, how does your genuine recipe for sales become even more critical?
Well, I mean, we're seeing the swing away from it right now, right? People, especially for expensive offers, are almost exclusively responding to high touch, non scalable, human first marketing. So I don't have any problem with AI. I think it's a very effective tool. I think people should know how to use it. And you can't like a hammer can't have a sales conversation. So it's silly to try and think that this inanimate tool can replace the elements of humanity that have to work for this.
Miss Rachel, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season. Abstract poetry in second season. I'm a book one review in fifth season too. Comedy one in second season. I'm a food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 fourth season. And my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love letters in third season and Movie 101 Review, Music 101 fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. To end with a call action, Miss Rachel, if someone listening takes only one thing away from this conversation, what is the one belief about marketing they need to unlearn today to stop failing and start be
The
successful?
So the thing I always tell people whenever the internet implodes periodically, as we're doing right now, I say that, this is like my fifth internet apocalypse. And what I have seen that pulls businesses through every single time is the quality of relationships they are able to build with their teams, with their colleagues, with other businesses, and with their audiences. And the way you do that is showing up human. So, my takeaway for you is human is the only move left.
In the human. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, Miss Rachel Allen. So explain us, Bolt from the Blue copywriting, what is all about.
hmm So this is where I do my marketing. We do data-driven thing. Apologies, 1 second. I've got a phone alarm going off. That's terrible.
No worries.
Um,
No worries at
sorry
all.
about that.
No worries at
Hey,
all.
That's where I do marketing. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes. So Bolt from the Blue copywriting. Thank you so much again, Miss Rachel. And can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Please visit me at boltfrombluecopywriting.com or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Rachel Allen, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy to come, for sure. So, Miss Rachel, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, people. See you soon.